Hey, Comics Cubers, our guests today are Dr. Carlo Jose San Juan and Rod Espinosa. And we're talking to them we'll talk to them about their careers, but we're mainly talking to them about their collaboration called Immortal Wings, which is a tribute to 80s cartoons. It's got space cowboys, dragons, talking rabbit, gangsters in space, and all of that stuff. It's quite fun. And before we go on, I'd like to remind you all that we have a Patreon. If you'd like to support the Comics Cube and maybe get early access to stuff, click the link down below to support us. You might even get producer credit, which means that you will get credit. You'll see your name at the end of each episode after you start pledging. And also, I should probably tell you that Carlo and I are both huge fans of Bill and Ted, and I actually appeared on his podcast a couple of years ago to talk about Bill and Ted. So you may be seeing quite a few references to the greatest trilogy of all time, Bill and Ted. Without further ado, the team of Immortal Wings, Dr. Carlo Jose San Juan and Rod Espinosa. Greetings, my excellent friends, and welcome back to the Comics Cube. I did that for you, Carlo. I am.
Thank you.
I
A
am
most excellent intro.
with I am with Doc Carlo Jose San Juan and Rod Espinosa, and we are talking about a bunch of stuff, but primarily we are talking about their graphic novel, Immortal Wings. How are you guys tonight on this fine night?
Um, I'm okay. Just got back from work and taking care of my daughter and cooking dinner and just made it right right now to my computer for this. So, but it's fun. It's all good. I enjoy what I do. So,
Rod, my first question is for you. It's the first question I ask to everybody who comes on the show for the first time,
Sure.
which is why do you love comics?
Why do I love comics? Oh my gosh. I grew up with comics as a kid and watching animation. They're pretty much almost the same thing for me. And honestly, I never realized I would be a comic book artist when I grew up. I thought it would be something I would be doing for fun. And then college opened up the possibility that, yeah, I might be doing this as work. And even then it was still a struggle, but I think I just love creating worlds and making stories. So that's kind of like the short answer to that.
Do you remember the comic that made you fall in love with comics?
Yes, it's My the Psychic Girl by Ryochi Ikagami. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right.
Okay. And do
Yeah.
you remember the comic that made you realize you wanted to make comics?
Oh yes, it's X-Men. When I saw like all their adventures, the worlds that they went to, I said I'd like to do that one day, especially after seeing Arthur Adams's work on there. I'm like I would like to do that one day.
You answered my next question: is which artist was the
Oh,
one that was the one which because when you say X-Men, that could mean any number of artists that
right.
possibly
Yeah.
inspired you. Arthur Adams is a great choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doc, I'm gonna throw the question back at you, but first, what is the meaning of life?
every rose has its thorn, just like every night has
As
its
it's thought.
dawn, just like every cowboy sings a sad, sad song.
We
Every rose has its thorn.
every rose has its thorn. Don't I know you? So I asked that because that is something that you do reference in Immortal Wings. So people will probably think it's a poison
Oh, that's
reference.
right.
People will probably think
Forgot
it's a
about that.
poison reference, but I know what you're
Oh
really referencing.
man. Oh man, that's only you would catch that, I think.
What's the
I thought Doc
like?
knew.
Why do you love comics?
Um, growing up, I was pretty much a really big introvert, so I stuck to reading stuff basically. But my falling in love with comics primarily came from the newspapers because my parents would subscribe to newspapers, and there would be a comics page, and that's the stuff that I really fell in love with. So you have your Garfield, your Peanuts, Calvin and Hobbes. Those are the three
Three big
main
ones.
big series, yeah. But I also like Beetle Bailey and all, and then and that's when I was growing up in Singapore. And then when I moved to the Philippines, I got exposed. My first exposure to Philippine comics was also in the newspaper. So that's you have your Baltic and Company. My favorite back then was Cesar Asar, which has been discontinued. And another one was Help Wanted by Art Galindez at the bottom of the page. So yeah, that's and it's a way to kind of get my life going in a sense. It cheers me up. It helps me escape from reality when I need to, and I, I just plain enjoy it.
You love it so much because I was gonna save this question for near the end, but
Uh-huh.
I assume that as a doctor, you probably don't need the money comics gives you.
Um, no, as a doctor, I don't make as much as most, considering my specialty, but it's
It's-
still enough. It's still enough for me to pursue doing comics and with a more or less semi-stable income. So it affords me to take risks in doing this thing we all love,
You do
this
it out of
comics
love.
thing. Yeah.
You do it out of love. Kaz, what is the comic? Because you named Garfield, Peanuts, and
Uh-huh.
Calvin and Hobbes. Those are arguably the three biggest comic strips of all time.
Yeah. Arguably. Oh, Pogo should be in there too if we're talking about the biggest comics.
That's true. Pogo should be
Yeah,
in
yeah,
there.
yeah.
I'm gonna limit this to after they switch to not full page Sundays because that's a different
Yeah, yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
But what is the comic that made you realize that you love this medium?
It would be Amazing Spider-Man #4. I was in my grandparents' house and my mom had a copy, and she saw that I was kind of bored and not knowing what to do, so she handed me this copy for me to read. It's
Sandman.
the Sandman, that's right, yeah. And it I didn't realize how valuable that comic book was at the time, and I don't think she did either. But that copy is long gone, and no one knows where it is.
Oh, that's so sad.
But that was because I really got drawn into it. The story and everything, the art. I just fell in love with the book, and to this day, Spider-Man is my favorite superhero, and it all started from that issue.
How old were you?
Ooh, maybe third or fourth grade. I'm not sure.
Third or fourth grade. Okay, this is interesting. And Rod, you can chime in here with your
Yes.
opinion as an artist. Pero I don't recall. I don't think I've run into many people who have said in the third or fourth grade I fell in love with Steve Ditko's art.
Oh,
It's true. I fell in love with Steve Ditko's art in the third and fourth
wow.
grade.
What
And that
was it
that
about
is
Steve?
like
Yeah.
my gold standard. Steve Ditko is my gold standard when it comes to comic art.
What is it about Steve that you? Because I love Steve, but I love Steve now,
Mhm. Oh, okay.
Hmm.
right?
Um,
Because
well, you kind of have to pay attention to the bias as well because that was my first superhero comic book.
okay,
Because prior to that it was all like cartoons and
Hmm.
newspaper comic strips. So, but stuff just jumped out of the page to me, at least in my eyes. And I don't know how to say it, but it seemed so visceral, you know, his art. Yeah.
Steve is
And
very
I
good
could,
at motion.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. You really feel everything that's happening in the page. And it's even in today's standards, when I look back at Amazing Spider-Man #4, I still get the same emotions that I experienced back then when I opened it up for the first time.
Oh,
No, you're absolutely right, because Steve Ditko's art is neurotic, it's visceral, and I think that's why I didn't like him when I was
Okay.
first exposed to him. And then when I
Yeah.
realized that he was doing that, and he was the only guy who has ever done that on that, like, in that way. Because I feel like, as great as, for example, Jack Kirby is, you could copy Jack Kirby, but it's very difficult to copy Steve Ditko. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I'm just saying, like, one
Same.
is,
Yeah. I like Jack Kirby too. I love him for that matter, but I hold them on pretty much equal weight.
yes.
Yeah.
And is that what made you also want to draw comics and make comics?
No. What again, my first love was the newspaper comic strip, and that's probably why Amazing Spider-Man #4 really jumped out at me because my exposure to comics was pretty much newspaper comic strips. But that's pretty much when on Garfield's 10th anniversary, he had this special on TV. It came out as an episode of Garfield and Friends, I think, and or in lieu of an episode of Garfield and Friends, they broadcasted the 10th anniversary special for Garfield, and that's when I think that's pretty much the first time I saw a behind the scenes of a newspaper comic strip. So I got introduced to Jim Davis for the first time in a sense, and seeing what he does, how his camaraderie with other cartoonists, and he pretty much explained every line of how he draws Garfield, right? So being exposed to the whole philosophy behind what he does with Garfield, and his collaboration with other cartoonists, that's when I realized, like, man, I want to be in that world. I want to be doing that.
That's great. And you did do, you are the cartoonist
Oh, nice.
behind
Yes.
Callus,
Yes.
the story of Dr. Rian Nika, and
Yes.
just her
Cal Duck.
adventures in the hospital.
Hmm.
Just her adventures.
Hospital and beyond. It's about life in general. It just so happens that she
That
is a
she's a
doctor.
doctor.
So yeah.
Rod, how did you get, like,
yes.
you've been internationally published, you've been locally published. Like, can you talk to me about how you got into both spaces, and also, like, what the differences are between the two?
There's there's not a lot of difference actually when you look at it. I started at Gasi. This was back in the 90s. So essentially, I was out of college and I had an advertising job. And well, a classmate of mine, Andrew, he said, "Hey, they're looking for artists at Gasi. They were releasing some kind of a Marvel-like characters. This was, and if you look at all those old issues, you'll see a lot of who's who there. The big names we have now are all there in those first Sonic Triangle books. So I went in there and I just submitted my work, and they liked it. So they paired me with a writer. And my first comic book in the Philippines was entitled Cyberina. It was written by somebody else. I kind of forget his name right now, but I still have some of the issues. It's funny, and they're kind of in tatters, but
That's how you know you've made so many comics, when you don't even
paper
remember.
is old, but yeah, right. Yeah, sometimes some people remind me, oh yeah, I worked on this one, and they show up at a convention, and they showed me a book where I appeared in, and I'm like, oh, that's right, I I did that. So there's so many of that, and just now as I'm preparing to go to San Pablo, I was digging up some old art that I was hoping to donate to the museum if they want to. Because I asked Atiline, would you like to accept this art? I don't know if you want to, but I just put it out there. So anyway, I dug up some old art. I'm like, I've never published this, and our work is full of that, like unpublished books and all that. But during the mid '90s, I moved to the U.S. and I applied to Antarctic Press through the mail. I applied to Antarctic Press. I found out that comic book companies are pretty much run the same way, which is a lot of times by the seat of their pants. I don't know. Even when we went to Marvel, we were like, this looks like Antarctic Press, only bigger, because all the cubicles are full of papers and art, and it's just a lot of junk. And people had toys on the shelves. I'm like, hey, this looks like Antarctic Press, only it's got more cubicles, of course, and it's a bigger office. So that was, yeah. So one thing led to another, and I just kept drawing. I accepted everything that came my way, even if it was cheap. That's sometimes that's how I tell starting artists. I said, I know the page rate is cheap, but just accept it. Think bigger things might come later on. So kind of worked out. So that's how I am right now. Even though I continually joke that if I ever run out of clients, I can just drive a van like everybody else.
It should be noted that you have been
I
nominated
like
for.
going around anyway, so I'm like,
It should be
Yes.
noted that you have been nominated for several awards, including
you.
including an Eisner back in 2002.
Yes.
Yeah.
So congratulations, Rod. So
Thank you.
let's talk about Immortal Wings. Gaz,
Hey.
talk to me
Yes.
about how you came up with this idea and how you ended up hooking up with Rod.
Oh, okay. That's a really interesting story, but let me start from the beginning. Um, uh, Back when I was a med student, during the times when I try to relax, one of the things that I escaped to was heavy metal magazine, and I was really into it in those years from me, I guess 1999 to maybe 2003, right?
Okay.
And uh, so much so that I fell in love with the whole fantasy genre, and I liked how the various artists in heavy metal magazine approached the fantasy genre. It's very varied. Um, so in my spare time, what little there was during med school, in my spare time, I would try writing. I originally wanted to write an actual novella, an actual story, and I realized that maybe I didn't have the time, or I wasn't that good at it. So I started writing it in script form, and but every now and then I think, no, this isn't that good an angle, so I change it every now and then. Um, but when I met another artist, Pilar Esber. I decided, hey, let's do a comic together because I liked her art style. It is a very signature manga inspired art. And if you see that artwork, you'll know that she's the one who did it. And that's what I look for in artists that I want to collaborate with.
A style, a distinct style.
Yeah, a distinct style. And she has that. So, but I wanted to make one that was very kid friendly, and I felt that Immortal Wings really wasn't going to go anywhere. So I kind of stole elements from Immortal Wings and put it into the series that we worked together on, which is Mouse, which is MOUSE. It's an acronym for Multiple Ordnance and Utility Synthetic Entity. But yeah, it was geared toward children because I was a dad of a young boy at the time, and I wanted to do something to that he can read.
Mm.
And so Immortal Wings kind of disappeared in the background. I felt that it wasn't really going to go anywhere, but I was already in the comic scene at the time. I was going to comic conventions, and I would look around like, hey, maybe this guy can draw Immortal Wings, or that guy can draw Immortal Wings. They have a nice art style. But it wasn't until a Jerry Alangilan signing in Comic Odyssey and Robinson's Galleria. I just showed up to support, and a good friend, the late great Danry Ocampo, he said, "Hey, have you met Rod Espinosa?" Because he knew I was looking for an artist, and I was like, "No, no, I haven't. I knew nothing about Rod Espinosa." And he said, "Okay." So he introduced us, and we pretty much hit it off. You know, we had common interests. We loved the fantasy genre as well. I didn't know his body of work yet, but he showed me some. It was a fairy tale comic that he showed me. I think it was Little Red Riding Hood. I'm not sure.
Mm.
And like then I fell in love. I fell in love with this art style. Like, oh my gosh, this is like, it screams Rod Espinosa at me, you know. And so in my mind I was already like, I have to work with this guy. And then I remembered, hey, there's the story that I was working on called Immortal Wings. So a few weeks later, I think we met in a Chili's. I forget
Ah,
where. Yeah. So we had lunch, and I started my pitch.
is that in Quezon City?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think so. It was in Kansas City. So I gave my pitch. Like, there's this fantasy story that I want illustrated, and I want to work with you on it, if you're available, you know. And he said, pretty much, long and short of it was, he said, okay, just I'll email you my page rates, then you can decide later on what we'll do. And so I saw his page rates. I'm like, oh my gosh, why is he charging so much? So finally decided, okay, who's Rod Espinosa? So I Googled him, and then, oh my gosh, I just asked an Eisner nominee to draw my comic, and all these other awards, the Ignatz Award, and so I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's why he's asking for so much money. So but really I couldn't afford Rod Espinosa as an illustrator. So I had another meeting with him and offered ownership of the property of Immortal Wings. So as a co-creator, he is also incentivized to get this thing out there, because originally all I wanted to do with this was to make it a webcomic, you know.
Yeah.
But with Rod Espinosa being a co-creator, a co-owner, he was incentivized to pitch it to publishers. And then Rod Espinosa, being Rod Espinosa, with a snap of a finger, we had a publisher. But he said, okay, we have a good lead, but we have to finish the first issue at least. That will be our pitch. If we have a completed issue, publishers will be more willing to say, okay, these guys are serious. They want to make this comic series, and it's a good series, and so on and so forth. So I wrote as fast as I could the first issue, and then Rod Espinosa, being Rod Espinosa again, illustrated it just like that. Like, oh my, how did you come up with these pages in like days? That's insane. And so I was super impressed. I pretty much got all my money's worth with Rod, and he pitched it to. E- Eventually, it was Antarctic Press that picked it up
Yeah.
because they've worked with them already in the past, and uh, so after they said yes, Rod's like, okay, now you have to start writing the next issues. They agreed to do like a 4 issue miniseries. And like, okay, I'm very happy with that. I started writing, but Rod drew faster than I could write. He churns out pages like, I don't know how he does it. To this day. I don't know how he spends and mentioned some short digital shortcuts that he does, but still, even with those, I don't understand how he can complete pages so fast. So that's Rod Espinosa for you. He was the most professional illustrator I've ever worked with, and yeah, hats off to him. A lot of our success comes from his professionalism. It's amazing.
How do you feel, Rod?
I thank you, thank you. Uh, I can add to that. Uh, no, because Carlo is such a good collaborator, and luckily, this is because I worked on another sci-fi book which didn't do too well, called Prince of Heroes, and I had so many pre-made backgrounds, especially things to do with space, that I never got to use. So I just start that's why I was able to crank out some scenes faster than others, because I already these pre-made backgrounds, which I thought it would be a waste not to use them. So whenever there's a file that the stuff that I didn't use, and I said, "Man, that'll work." So yeah, so
Oh, it must be
you
said.
benefited from that. Yeah,
Yeah. It must be said that during our first meetings, the reason why we hit it off so well is not only did we love the fantasy genre, we were big fans of cartoons when we were growing up.
yes, yeah,
So that's really the energy that we decided to put into Immortal Wings, the whole
right,
80s
yes,
cartoon, whether sci-fi or fantasy based. We really wanted to be that I don't know what's the word, like very really bombastic, the way
yeah.
80s cartoons were before. Yeah,
Silverhawks, Brave
yeah,
Star,
Silverhawks,
He
Thundercats,
Man. Yes, yes,
oh right, He-Man, of course,
you
yeah.
know, John Blackstar.
I was going to say,
Um,
I see Brave Star all over this thing.
Yeah,
Brave Star, yes.
yeah,
We did talk
Um,
about Brave Star, yeah.
early '80s.
so give me in just a couple of lines for people who don't know what Immortal Wings is about. Give me your brief summary slash pitch. That's a
So
question for you, Doc.
Yeah, it's Immortal Wings is a sci-fi fantasy adventure about a space bounty hunter and her cybernetic dragon agent. So the dragon actually looks for work for her, and they were hired by what I call the Galactic Shogunate to eliminate what they felt was a threat to the rule over the galaxy, and it turned out to be this little farmer rabbit, and that's where the adventure begins.
That is where the adventure begins. The bounty hunter, by the way, your synopsis on the back here says his dragon.
Oh, did I? Oh my gosh. Okay.
Oh,
Oh, I just want to fix that.
that's part of indie publishing as well. Something
Oh man,
always
I
falls through.
we rushed that cover. I have to mention when our contract with Antarctic Press expired and we wanted to look for a new publisher for Immortal Wings, Comiket stepped up to bat, and
Mhm.
they uh, they compiled our 4 issues together, and we added some additional material as well for for the trade paperback that you were holding. But yes, we were rushing. I was actually it was me. I was rushing to meet the deadline for publication for I think it was Peak Off 2024, and it made it. But yes,
Which
there
is
are some
where I bought
errors.
it.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Which is where I bought it.
Awesome, awesome.
You
Thank
talked
you.
about trying to capture the spirit of 80s cartoons, and I
Yes.
do think it is very important to note this distinction. There is the
Mhm.
spirit of 80s cartoons, and there is the quality of 80s cartoons,
Oh wow. Okay.
right? Because how we remember the 80s cartoons are probably better than they actually were.
Yes.
Sure, sure.
So I mean,
But
especially
yes, you're
especially if you
right.
look at freaking cartoons now, man. Like
Yeah.
uh but there is a spirit to 80s cartoons that is
Yes.
just so like here's an idea and here's an idea and here's another idea.
Sure, yeah.
um
That's pretty much how I wrote Immortal Wings. Like I just threw in
mm.
all the stuff that I found awesome into it and tried to make sense out of everything.
And so the main character is Blaze. She's a bounty hunter. Some people might call
Mhm.
her a space cowboy.
Yeah.
um but you do have certain characters here who, for example, what's the name of this girl? The one that looks like she's straight out of an anime fighting game.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Mizuki and
Oh
the
yeah, the
Shogun's hands.
twins.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
the twins.
Yeah.
Yes, Mizuki
Yeah.
and Suzuka. Yeah.
So what goes into the creation of these characters? Like, what do you? Is there a cohesion that you're looking for, or is it more a matter of like this is going to be what looks cool and
Well, I
IP
kind of
friendly?
I kind of went into it with the mentality that there are infinite possibilities in the universe or even in the galaxy. So you would find all of these things, all of these tropes and things. Uh, anyway, if you were a spacefaring person in such a universe, and but one thing about the universe is everything kind of balances out. So all of these varied things should be living in a sort of harmony in a way. So I'm trying to connect all of these weird things together to sort of harmonize their existence in this universe that Rod and I created.
It's true because in real life, for example, we are not
Mhm.
divided up into genres,
Yes.
right? We don't have like we all have crime, we all have sci-fi, especially now
Mhm.
in our lives. We have romance in our lives, etc. But so just putting them together just makes sense from a
Yeah.
realistic point of view. Rod, what was it like designing these characters? Because they're all very visually striking.
It was a lot of fun actually. And Doc Carlo was such a good collaborator, designing the characters, especially Mizuki and her twin there. Uh, it reminded me of the when I first saw Project A, any of those anime shows with schoolgirls. So that really clicked right away. And he's the straight up action and martial arts kind of thing. Really like the hammers, so I really had to design a good hammer for them. uh,
Nice.
so yeah, it was a lot of fun designing their look, and I know I wanted to slightly different take. That's why I went for the slightly British schoolgirl kind of look. I don't know. So
I
yeah, at
like
the
it. It
same
was
time, I still
very
wanted to do
it was
the
very punk
yeah,
rock. I like it. I made a
yeah.
very specific thing on in the script that I knew I was working with Rod Espinosa, and he's very famous for drawing beautiful women. But I had a note there, like when he designs them, they should not be sexualized. Like I wanted them to be,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
think he did a great job.
Definitely had to tone that. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I will
No,
point
no, no fan service.
Yeah, no
Sorry.
uh,
fan service.
I will point out, Kaz, that we are talking about capturing the spirit of 80s
Mhm.
cartoons, and one of the ways in which capturing that spirit is different is there
Mhm.
are not many female protagonists in 80s cartoons, and in fact,
True. I
one
can't
of
think
the
of any.
most famous one of the most famous female protagonists in 80s cartoons is a spin-off, T-Man sister Shira,
Oh, Shira, right, right.
right? And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
the other ones are Gem and the Holograms. I can't
Yes.
Yes.
think
Yeah.
of the others. So
Yeah.
Josie and the
uh,
Pussycats.
was that an 80s
Um,
cartoon? No, that was a
Kind of,
60s.
right?
Later
That
than
wasn't
that.
wasn't that a
Yeah,
60s
Oh,
yeah.
was it?
cartoon?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
Archie and them, they were in
Yeah.
the 60s.
So what led you to the creation of Blaze? Deciding that you were going to write a female protagonist.
Mostly because I wanted to base the character on Clint Eastwood's character from the Man with No Name movies, because
Mhm.
I love the spaghetti westerns that he starred in. And one the best way I could differentiate my character from him is to make her female. So that's
Easy
pretty
enough.
much the only reason. Yeah.
What challenge? So, like, what challenges did you guys face when creating the 4 issues of Immortal Wings? And are we should we expect more issues of Immortal Wings?
Challenges, just getting scripts ready in time for the original publication run. Because I'm not a comic book writer. At least at the time, I wasn't a comic book writer as a professional yet. So I was pretty much really trying to get a nice flow to the story, and uh, my experience with comic strips kind of helped in a way that I think of writing the comic strip in beats, and I kind of approached Immortal Wings in the same way, in the sense that I wanted a certain beat to flow through each page, and I wanted each page to end at a certain type of beat, so that you're kind of pushed to flip the page and see what happens next. And uh, but I guess the biggest challenge was scrounging enough money to pay Rod on time, and because I didn't want to be the guy who would be like, "Yeah, I promise I'll pay you this much every
Oh,
month until we complete our
that's
contract."
appreciated, but yeah.
But uh, so I
I tried
tried my
not to be
very
too
best
pushy.
to, he never pushed me, to be
No.
fair. He never pushed me. It was more of more of my honor, of my word to keep paying him on time. I remember there was one Christmas where where I was out of money, and and I couldn't pay Rod. And then I heard that Rod was going through some financial issues at the time as well, or not issues, but he needed some extra money urgently. Fortunately, I did have a patient that I had to treat, so I got some money and I was able to pay. um, but yeah, I think that was the biggest challenge. Uh, Another thing that it wasn't necessarily a challenge, but there was a miscommunication between us with Immortal Wings. That's in regards to a certain group of characters, the green alien creditors.
Okay.
I actually wrote them as a sort of a Yosemite Sam type of bandit. Uh, but Rod kind of misinterpreted what what I wrote as, these 50s or 30s to 50s style gangsters. He made them into these green alien gangsters. But then when I
Um,
saw that, I'm like, you know what? That kind of works. I
it
like
works
that. So
actually.
yeah. So I like that. So I told him, let's keep it. I really like how it turned out. So, and another thing
We call
was,
that a happy accident.
yeah, happy
That's I was
accident.
about to say. Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that we more or less disagreed on, but I what do you call this? I gave into his expertise in the end. Uh, in one of the final battles, final fights between two main characters, uh, I actually wrote in a lot of, because there was a scene where the bad guy throws a cat at the main protagonist, and I threw in a lot of these cat puns, like "you've got to be kidding me," and stuff like that. And Rod said, that kind of takes the reader out of the seriousness of the scene. So like, but then it's funny, But he's like, no, we gotta keep it more serious at this point. I'm like, all right, you know what you're talking about. I'm not gonna argue against an Eisner nominee. So okay, we'll do it your way. And I think he was right. But I kind of miss those cat puppets.
We can put him in another book.
But maybe another
Yeah.
book, yes. Oh, and yes, there was a question on if there would be more. Yes, and Rod and I will actually be the writers of the next series of stories for Immortal Wings. We've actually tapped another illustrator who's amazing as well, but we will hold from announcing that until I finished writing at least. So
Okay,
there.
okay. You can tell me off camera.
Yes.
Rod, I think you were on delay earlier, but I did ask
Sure.
you to please like go through how you designed Blaze because she has a very striking look that I feel could very easily be drawn by anyone else. If somebody were to decide to, for example, adapt Immortal Wings, it would be very easy to just costume somebody to look like
That's true,
Blaze.
huh? Yeah.
So how did you design Blaze? Did you have Martin? Did you have that in mind, like easy
That
adaptability?
was most Doc Carlos' description. So I just followed what he wrote, and he says, "Well, it looks like Clint Eastwood." So I referenced Clint Eastwood's, the poncho. I
Yeah.
wanted to do the hat. I wanted to do the hat accurately. In fact, that the new release by Comic
I'll make
Ep,
it.
I actually went in there and fixed a few more things. I just didn't say more. I just didn't say which ones, but I did fix a few more things about her. So I wasn't happy. I just
I,
tweaked a
I
few things. So yeah.
I remember Rod mentioning that he kind of approached the cowboy poncho as a superhero cape, and
I could see
Yes.
that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Like
I thought it was a nice idea.
and the dragon is a great touch, by the way. Like instead of
Yeah,
a
of
horse, it's a
course.
dragon. Perfect.
Yes, I love the dragon.
Perfect. Yeah.
I love the cigar.
Yeah.
And I love that she is a cowboy that sings a sad, sad song.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. I had to throw it in there.
I feel like you threw it in for me, even though we didn't know each other back then.
That's true. We haven't
Wow.
met yet. Yeah.
So Immortal Wings, you can buy it at Comic Cat. And will you guys be at Peak Off this year?
I will not.
With
I'll be abroad, unfortunately.
I probably will.
So you are active, and you are present in multiple comic book
Yeah, I'll
events
be at Comic Con. Yeah,
where people can buy Immortal Wings. So
sure.
as I've mentioned, as you have mentioned, this was born out of the spirit of 80s cartoons. And 80s cartoons say to me, guys, it says to me, multimedia adaptation and merchandise. Have you thought
I
about
hope
this
so.
at all?
It's a reality in my dreams every day, and
Yeah.
but there have been no talks regarding that at all so far. But of course, absolutely, we'd be open to stuff like that. Even like maybe an animated series, live action adaptation, anything. I'm open to everything.
Yeah.
Here's my last question for you guys. In the more recent history of Filipino comics, we're talking 2000, we're talking 21st century
Right.
Filipino comics, no? In an attempt to solidify the identity of Filipino comics, a lot of, not all, but a lot of Filipino comics artists and writers have used the devices of Filipino mythology, Filipino settings, the Filipino streets, Filipino politics, and so on and so forth. You do none of this in Immortal Wings.
Yes.
Do you feel like writing and drawing Immortal Wings, you are two Filipinos. Do you feel that you have a responsibility to represent the Philippines in the work, or do you feel that that comes through anyway, just by virtue of who you are?
Yes, the latter. I feel that since Rod and I are Filipinos, and our approach to the comic making process and everything else around the book is a very Filipino mentality. We are two Filipino comic creators who came up with this story and we wanted to present it to the world, you know. And that is also my approach with my other comic, Callus. There's some, but there's very little actual Filipino stuff in the series. Um, but my approach to creating this comic is, I would say, very, very Filipino. And but since it was when I became serious about it, it was a web comic, so I wanted it to be very accessible to a global audience. So I kind of tried to refrain from injecting humor that is very Filipino specific, because there are a lot of Filipino specific medical jokes that I wish I could put into into the series, but I refrain from doing so out of respect to the global audience. It's the same with Immortal Wings. There's an old Filipino song that I thought of while I was writing it, and it's called Kawawang Cowboy. And
Wow, ang cowboy.
yes. There were parts where I wish I could like throw in like she was munching on champoy instead of bubble gum, or stuff like that. But I had to refrain because it's stuff that people abroad will not get. But um yeah. So or yes.
Follow-up question. Do you think that's
Yes.
changing? Because
What do you mean?
we now live in a world, right? Because
Mhm.
because I think Ren Ren Galeno is great, right?
Yes.
I think
So do I.
I think she's great. Rod, I know you
Yeah.
think she's great too. But
Mhm.
I would have never in a million years thought that Sawala, a comic about a sabong chicken, would get 6 translations globally. Because I would not have thought that the international market would have cared about something that is so incredibly Filipino.
Mhm.
But apparently now they do. So
Yes.
I guess my question is, these things that you're pulling back because you think that people would not get it, do you think that is changing?
Yes. Yes, I absolutely do think it's changing, and for the better. Uh, and I credit the efforts of everyone involved in trying to bring the Filipino spirit in comics to the world. It all, if we're going to really trace it all the way, this began back in the 60s, or even maybe in the 50s, with the Filipino invasion of American comics. But the actual Filipino material in the stories, that is a more recent thing that is being more absorbed by the global audience in more recent times, and I'm very, very happy about that. But I do have to give credit to the government body that is recognizing that, the National Book Development Board. They're recognizing that comics are a literary form, and they have a very big hand in the push to getting our Filipino stories a global audience. Same with Paulo Harris and all of them at Comiket, taking chances with a lot of Filipino material and presenting them to a global audience. That's just fantastic what they're doing, and they're working very, very hard at it too, and I really appreciate it. They threw Immortal Wings in there as well, which I also very, very greatly appreciate. So, Paolo, if you're watching, thank you so much.
Rod, anything to add?
Actually, yeah, I wanted to add that I like it that way. When Doc mentioned that we don't have a lot of Filipino references in our work, and in some ways, it does reflect the '80s, the cartoons that we grew up in, because now older, we're finding out all these Filipino artists behind the series, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like I have a Facebook friend, Del Barris. I'm like, you were in those cartoons. You worked on. Oh my gosh, how
Yep,
did I
Del
not know about
Barris.
this, right? Yeah.
Alfredo
So I'm
Alcala
like,
was one of the creators of He-Man.
right,
Yes,
right.
one of my
And
dream
and
artworks
all that.
to
I'm
get
like,
is his art of He-Man.
Of He-Man, yeah. Is
right,
just one of
right.
the
I'm like,
greatest of all
you're
time.
finding out all these Filipino work and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, we were talking about Brave Star earlier,
Just behind
and
the scene, you wouldn't know. But yeah.
yeah, we're talking about Brave Star earlier, and I 100%, I keep saying 3030 is a tikbalang.
Tikbalang. Yes, a cybernetic
He's a
tikbalang.
cybernetic tikbalang. Look at him.
Right.
That is what a
Perfect.
tikbalang
I
is.
wouldn't be surprised.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Another thing before we go, I would like to thank you guys. You were at Singapore Comic Con. A friend of mine took her family there, and she met with you guys and said you guys were really cool. And
Oh yes, I
you
remember.
you were
Yes.
the first you were the first purchase they had that day, and I feel like
Awesome. Oh, okay. Thank you.
it
Thank
made
you.
them very comfortable to be in Comic Con. I think it was their
Oh,
kids' first
you're
Comic Con,
welcome.
so it was
Oh,
Oh,
uh,
nice.
I would like to thank you guys for that. That was very cool.
you're welcome.
I
Oh, it's
hope
our
you gave
pleasure.
them a
Our pleasure.
discount. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I hope you gave them the Comics Cube discount. Kidding. I feel
I
like
gave a
Rod
lot
also
of
said
props. I gave a lot of props to
Did
the
we?
host of Comics Cube. I say, oh, he's a fantastic guy. I love his show. Um, ask him for discounts.
Okay. Okay. So Immortal Wings, you can buy it at Comic-Con. You can buy it on Shopee.
Yes.
You could buy it on Lazada.
I
wanna
think so.
say? Yeah.
Importantly, it's also
Yeah.
available in Fully Booked.
Yes, it is
A
also
bookstore
available
has
for
finally
book.
picked up, yeah, a lot of the Filipino comic
So,
titles, so that's fantastic.
Yes, and Fully Booked is a very strong supporter of the comic book medium. So
Yeah.
it's good that it's there. And notably, probably they can go add you guys and you can sell it to them. And
Hopefully, one day.
I will go ahead and I will say to anybody watching the show, if you are not in the Philippines, if you are interested in Immortal Wings, the story of a space cowboy named Blaze, and her dragon and this rabbit, and as well as some gangster aliens who are not Yosemite Sam, and you are interested but you don't know how to get it, come talk to me, and we'll figure out a way to get it to you. I believe if you are in LA, you will be able to find it at Hot Tropiks. But if not, come talk to me. We'll figure out a way to get it to you. So thank you guys. This was most excellent.
Most bodacious.
And
thank you.
be excellent to each other.
Party on, dudes.